Hello everyone, welcome to the only source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system on the web. This is the SoxProspects.com podcast. It's episode number 120. Thank you for the download or the stream. My name is Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com, coming to you from the Sox Prospects Mid-Atlantic offices here in our nation's capital on Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all of our veterans out there and to all of our families of veterans, those who've passed away in defense of our country. I'm joined by our Director of Scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, no third wheel today, but we've got some news. We've got Brendan McGarr of the Pawtucket Times coming on to talk about the Paw Sox and their stadium saga. Seems like it's something that's changing daily and something that's got to have it has a big effect, really, more than people might realize, on the highest affiliate in the Boston Red Sox farm system. They're looking for a stadium, and who knows where that's going to take them. It's been, seemed like they were going to Providence. Now it seems like they're going to Pawtucket, and it seemed like they had a deal more or less ready to go, and then now that's potentially in question, but we're going to talk to him about that and about the team. And we've got some news. We've got also some rankings talk, Ian. Lots going on, but I guess let's start. What's new with you? What's the news for Ian Kundle?
Nothing. Just been in Portland, seen them a few times these last couple of days, and it's 45 degrees on Memorial Day, so that's always a good thing. So
nice.
What can you do?
It's warm down here, but actually, if you don't mind, really quickly, if we can just touch on this. I know I kind of talked to you about this during the week. You have family they're not there, but they're from Manchester, England.
Yes.
You're a Man City fan.
I am.
And I guess just really quick, obviously we all saw what happened with the bombing in Manchester at the Ariana Grande concert. I just thought you had a good point to make, at least, about the people of Manchester. I don't know. Obviously, like you said, you have no family there now, but the people of Manchester, I just thought you had a good point about that, and I figured let's start with some positivity, the power of positivity, if you will, from something out of that on Memorial Day episode.
Yeah, no, it's just the people of Manchester. They're really tough. They've had some troubles, going back all the way back in the World War II. You had things down there. They've had their turbulent times. They're a city that they got each other's backs, and they're just going to come together at a time like this. And it's been, just following along with what's going on over there. It's been pretty heartening to see how the city has reacted and how everything's come together and kind of united around a single purpose. So, they'll get through it, and it's just tragic that stuff like that still happens around the world.
If I could make light of one part of that, hopefully it won't be taken poorly or anything, but I'm surprised you used the word united to describe it. Yeah,
well, it was interesting. The catchphrase, or one of the things they've been saying, is the city united. And it's the football joke, because Man City, Man United. So,
right.
Yeah,
but,
that's
good. And actually, one other thing that reminds me of, you had told me like a month ago to mention this, and I've forgotten, and I apologize. But you were telling me about, this is completely changing gears, someone had come up to you at a game.
Oh yeah, I thought about this when I was up in Portland this week.
Yeah,
and. It was after one of the first games of the year, and it was like 10 degrees out, and I was really cold, and a listener to the podcast came up to me and asked if I was Ian Kundle, and I said yes, and I just said thank you for listening and everything, and I felt bad after the fact, because usually in those situations I'd stop and talk or chat for a little bit, but it was freezing, and I really wanted to get in my car and warm up. So I kind of I didn't want that person to think I was giving them the cold shoulder or anything. So
you just had a cold shoulder was the problem.
Yeah, I was freezing. So if you see me again in Portland, feel free to come up. I'd be happy to talk to you. And thank you for listening and following the site.
Excellent. Well, with those things out of the way, let's do some really quick announcements, and then we'll jump into. We're kind of playing this by ear because of the timing of the interview with Brendan. I think, Ian, maybe we'll jump first into news, contrary to the plan we literally just discussed. Looking at the clock, I think we can get through that in the 15 minutes we have. So, yes, anyway, of course, as I always say, one way you could support the podcast, and the cause, I guess, for that matter, which is where I was apparently going, is to subscribe, rate, and review. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Play Music, we're on YouTube. If you're on iTunes, and you subscribe, you're going to get the show downloaded once we release a new episode every time you open iTunes and there's a new episode of the podcast. It's real easy. If you go on there and rate us, give us a good rating and a review. If you don't mind, we'll be able to get in more ears. It helps with the algorithm. Stitcher, same thing. It's an app for your phone. If you are listening to podcasts or music on your phone, it's the easiest way to get your ears on the podcast. You just subscribe, you throw us in your favorites playlist, and the newest episode is always going to be right at the top of your queue. It's real easy, and if you rate us on there, same thing. Brings us up in the ears of new listeners as often as we can. Also, I've been mentioning patreon.com/SoxProspects, and Ian, I checked this right before while you were talking just now. We have hit our initial goal of over $50 per episode, literally from a person who joined as a patron today. So
awesome.
Yeah, special shout out to our newest $5 level contributor, Tyler Woodroll. Thank you, Tyler. We really appreciate it. Next time I'm out in Oregon, it looks like I'm going to have to buy you a pint at Cascade Brewing or one of the fine breweries out there. But as always, we want to thank our $5 contributors. The rest of them, of course, are Cody Pimentel, Sock Signatures, Lendell Martin, Kirby Miller, Gerardo Antosca, and Kyle Costigan, who it turns out is actually related. I joked about this last time, but is actually related to Billy Costigan. There is apparently a real one. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but there's a real Billy Costigan where they got the name for The Departed's Billy Costigan, which I didn't know.
I didn't know that either.
He informed me of. So I was like he said, yes, it turns out I am. He's like, yes, I am related to Billy Costigan. And I replied like an idiot saying, I was making a joke. It's the character from The Departed. And he said, yeah, I know. And he was actually very nice about it when he could have been like, you're an idiot. You're a jerk. So sorry about that, Kyle. And thank you for teaching me some things.
That's funny.
So I appreciate that. But yeah, thank you to our $5 contributors. Our chat with our $2 and up contributors is going to be next Tuesday night, June the 7th. We will be sending an email to all of our $2 and up contributors on Patreon for our patron exclusive chat. Like
Is it June the 6th?
June the 6th, next Tuesday.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the 7th is Wednesday.
Yeah, did I say the 7th? I apologize.
Yeah.
June the 6th. It's Tuesday the 6th. We're not quite sure of the platform yet, so we will email everyone with how we will be doing that. We're not sure if we're going to do it on like something simple like Skype or a chat app like they use on like Fangraphs or Baseball America or something like that. I see it more as a conversation, frankly. But it depends on how many people we get on there, what people want to know, what people want to talk about. So next Tuesday night, keep an eye on your email if you're a patron at the $2 and up level. And if you're not yet, get on there. Again, patreon.com/SoxProspects. Now, as always, thank you to the Ludlow Thieves for our intro music, All the Money. They're on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify. Get their music. It's great. We love getting your emails. I don't think we're going to get to any emails today. I have to double check while we take a break to see if we have any from our patrons who we promise to get to every episode that they send in a question. But the email is podcast@soxprospects.com. Get those in. If we don't get them this week, we're definitely going to do some next episode when we're going to have, we'll see who we get on. We're trying to get a guest for that one as well. So, again, podcast@soxprospects.com. Follow the site on Twitter @SoxProspects. I'm @SPChrisHatfield. Ian is @Ian Kundall, Cundall. Make sure you follow us on there and check out our news page, news.soxprospects.com. Ian, let's talk a little bit about some news. To me, the biggest news over the past week has been the activation, the season debuts, the new guys, I guess, that we have to watch over the past week. To me, really the biggest one.
My guy.
Was your dude, and who I like really very much as well after seeing him at spring training, is Brian Mata. After pitching in the Dominican Summer League last year in his first year as a professional, added to the Greenville Drive roster to pitch out of the rotation at age 17. He is younger. He's the youngest player in the South Atlantic League. He's the second youngest player, I believe, in Low A. He's younger this year than either Anderson Espinoza or Ronio Raudes was last year, pitching for the Drive. Kind of crazy. What was your reaction to Mata being added to the drive back on the 24th last weekend?
Well, I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see him in Lowell, but
Fair.
At the same time, I understand. I was just double checking, and when we wrote about him in spring training, I suggested that he'll probably go to extended and then start with Lowell, but I wouldn't rule out an aggressive assignment to Greenville.
That a boy.
It happened. So it's exciting because as we've kind of talked about, the system has a real lack of high end pitching prospects, and on pure upside, he's one of the few that you can dream on as a high end, doesn't have like a Jason Groom type ceiling in my opinion at this point, but he just turned 18 actually. And it's very, very interesting guy. And, his first start went pretty well, I'd say. I don't know if you have the lineup. I think it was like three innings, 3 hits, 4 strikeouts.
I'll find it.
I got it. And 2 walks, and he gave up 1 run on a home run. So not bad for a kid his age facing, 21, 22-year-olds. And it's going to be a good test for him. But I think that he has the stuff to be able to handle that assignment. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to see him at some point this year or during Instructs.
Yes, and obviously, as everyone just heard, I think Firefly the Cat is very excited about Brian Mata in Greenville. It's a good start for him. I do wonder, he had the 3 innings he threw. Do we have a pitch count here? He threw 69 pitches, which is nice.
Nice.
No, but you wonder what the pitch count's going to be. Obviously, you would want him throwing fewer pitches for 3 innings. With that line, how many runners did he strand?
3 hits, 2 walks.
3 hits, 2 walks. How did he get to 70 pitches in 3 innings?
I don't know.
And he threw 40 strikes.
I thought he pitched. Did
he pitch into the 4th?
That's what I thought. But
he must have.
I was just going off our stats page. Let's see. I'm going to MILB.com.
No, I'm already there. So he pitched, first 3 innings, and in the top of he only pitched the 3 innings. That's really weird to me. He threw 70 pitches in 3 innings and had a line that wasn't awful. But
it's not the most economical, but
yeah. Well,
40 strikes, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Anyway, hey, he had a good start.
But
actually, he was piggybacked by Algenis Martinez through 4 innings, and then Jake Dre. Of course, the game went into the 13th, and Charleston won in the 13th. But so they had 3. The drive had 3 pitchers throw 3 innings that game. I don't think that's going to be the norm.
I would say, though, that he'll probably do like 3 inning stints. I think they're going to treat him kind of like they treat the college draftees.
That would be smart.
Give him like 3 inning stints for the first month and then bump it up to like 4 or 5. But probably I doubt we see him go more than like 5 innings or 85 pitches at any point this year.
He did throw 64 innings in the Dominican Summer League last year. So, 61 innings. I'm sorry, that included his 3 this year that I was looking at. It's exciting. It's an exciting move. We should mention some of the other guys. Jonathan Diaz also was added from extended spring training to the drive. He, I believe, has made his debut, or is he yet to debut? Ian, I've been out of town.
He was supposed to pitch today, but they got rained out.
No, he did. He's got a start. Yeah, he made his first start of the year already.
Oh, he did. Okay,
so,
I thought he was supposed to pitch
5
today.
innings, 6 hits, 3 runs. No walks, 4 strikeouts, so nice debut for him. Not a guy that is on our 60, I don't think, but I think he might be ranked on MLB Pipeline, actually.
He's someone I've had in like the back end
he could
of
be.
The top 60. He's he's in that fluid role from like probably like 45 to 70 is more or less. You could put it in any order.
Yep.
And
yes.
He's always pitched against, I've seen him against like more advanced age competition. And the stuff, it's been kind of average-ish, and he's a little undersized, and he's off Tommy John. So I think that's kind of why we're a little bit lower on him than some of the other places maybe.
He could move quickly if he pitches well. Kind of younger. He is 20 years old, so not super young, but young.
I think he's a reliever long-term, though, so we'll see.
By the way, he's not off of Tommy John. I believe he had
had it a couple years ago.
I thought it was a knee. It was a knee injury.
Oh, yeah, it was a knee injury. I'm thinking it was someone else with Tommy John.
It was a knee injury in 2015.
He missed the full season, though.
Yep, he missed all of 2015.
Or his ACL or something.
With an ACL or something, yes. Also added from extended spring training, Mark Brakeman was added just yesterday in Salem, so I'm not sure if he's even debuted yet. If he had, it would have been...
Yeah, he did.
He did pitch yesterday?
we have stats: 2 innings, 5 walks, 3 Ks, no hits.
A little rusty, but he'll work the kinks out. And Jake Drahoff was actually added to Greenville on what's essentially a rehab assignment. So there's no more injured players in spring training waiting to debut. There are guys who are at extended spring training. Sorry, not spring training.
Yeah. And Jeremy Rivera got activated today also.
Jeremy Rivera got activated from being suspended today as well. He, I believe, was in Salem's lineup. That means we should also see the debuts soon of catchers Jake Romanski and Tyler Spoon, who were similarly suspended. So that should be happening at some point soon. The other thing I just want to ask you about real quick, Ian, we've only got a couple minutes, but the Major League debut of Sam Travis happened since our last episode. Yeah, which is also kind of a big deal. Kind of came up a little bit of a surprise to me, but I get it if it's a short-term thing until the Pablo Sandoval activation happens, just to get Mitch Moreland a bit of a breather. He started all but one game before Sam Travis came up. Travis, a couple hits in his debut. What do we expect to see out of him, and as far as usage and as far as what he'll be able to do?
Well, it looks like he's not going to be playing. He'll play against lefties, and then it's more or less a platoon, it seems, with not really a platoon. It's kind of, because he played today against a lefty, but he got pinch hit for by Moreland when a righty came up late in the game. And I think that, it's a good first exposure for him. He's someone who probably would have been up at some point last year, if not for the ACL injury. And, as long as it's not a long-term thing where he spends the rest of the season on the bench, I'm fine with it. But he's someone that I'd prefer to be getting everyday at-bats, whether that be most likely back in AAA. So I would suspect he's back down there pretty soon. But I think he's going to hit a little bit. The power is a little questionable, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because it's short-term, like you said. If it had been putting him in this role for a period of even a month or more, I wouldn't be a fan of it. But,
no.
I guess the name of the game is to help the Major League team win. It would just be, how much can he help you on the short side of a platoon? But, for a week or two while you're waiting for Sandoval to come back up. The other thing I'm not a fan of is using 3 roster spots on first base and DH.
It's not ideal for roster construction. I think we talked about that last week.
Okay, that's right, we did. Thanks. I forgot about that. Yeah, because we got an email about it. That's right.
Well, the interesting thing is they're going to have. I wonder if he stays up though, because if Dustin Pedroia's injury is anything significant, and because he was just we're recording this on Monday, Memorial Day, and he just flew back to Boston to get an MRI on his wrist, I think.
Yeah, wrist.
And so with Marco Hernandez on the DL, Brock Holt's rehab shut down, and Devin Marrero already up in the big leagues, they're
starting at third base.
They have some problems in the middle infield right now.
Yeah.
Because their only middle infield options at AAA right now are Mike Miller and Ryan Court. And we saw Mike Miller up last year.
Jansen Whitty.
But he's not a good second baseman.
Well, I'm just saying those are the options. Yeah. That proves your point.
But if they call
SS2, I guess in theory,
they're going to have to call up Mike Miller. It looks like, and he's not on the 40-man because they just who else? I mean, Josh Rutledge is going to be playing every day, and they need a backup guy who can play shortstop. So they're kind of in a roster crunch when it comes to middle infielders right now.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how it went from being at third base to now, if Pedroia is hurt, it's at second base. I mean, I guess you could, in theory, do you call up? Well, I guess you can't call up Selsky.
No, because he doesn't play shortstop.
If only you had a potential Gold Glove second baseman somewhere on the Major League roster, Ian.
Someone's going to write that article if it's a significant injury, aren't they?
Probably. And, of course, I'm referring to the fact that Mookie Betts came up as a second baseman.
No way.
Even if he's done for the year, you don't do it?
No, because he was a Gold Glover in right field. He hasn't played the position, 3 years, 2 years?
Yeah. You sure? I mean, because in the outfield, you can start Chris Young in left, move Benintendi to right.
I was just looking at that. I was just talking. No.
You call up Selsky.
I don't see it.
Okay.
And you know what? That means it's going to happen. It's like your Adrian Gonzalez quote. It's going to happen now. But
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the news. We need to shut this down real quick and call Brendan McGarr. So coming up is our discussion with Brendan McGarr of the Pawtucket Times. Okay, so we are now on with great writer for the Pawtucket Times and the Woonsocket Call, who has been covering the Pawtucket Red Sox for pretty much, I'm trying to think, Brendan, as far back as I've been there. Pawtucket Times writer Brendan McGarr. Brendan, making your Sox Prospects podcast debut. I'm sorry it took this long, but thank you for joining us.
No problem, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I guess just to give our listeners a little bit of background, how long at this point have you been on the Paw Sox beat, and I guess how long have you been at the Times, if that's longer or shorter?
Well, good. I started at covering the Paw Sox in 2007, I believe. First real prospect I remember seeing come through was Jacoby Ellsbury. If we'll go back that far. Started working at the Times in 2005, and remember doing a couple of games that summer when it was a summer of Papelbon and Manny Del Carmen and Dustin Pedroia, and that kind of wave of prospects was washing through. But it's been an interesting ride over the years, seeing the talent come through, some hitting, some missing, and but there's never a shortage of a dull moment.
Yeah, for sure at that park. I'm trying to think. So, was 2005 the Roberto Pettigini year, or would that have been like Sandy Madera? What
Sandy
random?
Madera was like Sandy Madera. I remember that was like 2008, I believe. That was, and then of course I forgot about 2007. We also had the Clay Buchholz.
All right.
He made a pit stop on his way. Michael Bowden. I mean, there's just a list of names we can probably go through. It's quite uncanny if you really take a step back and think about it. I mean, I feel like all the years that I covered the team, felt like Jeff Bailey was there every single year, and
right.
Now Jeff Bailey has probably given away to the new mayor of Pawtucket. I'm not talking about Don Grebian, but Bryce Brentz. I mean, this is Bryce Brentz's, I believe, his fifth go around with the Paw Sox.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And all of a sudden, he's starting to hit like it was the first one or something over the past week or so. It seems.
I guess with Bryce Brentz, and just getting off the don't talk about him for a second.
Yep.
I guess he's worked on his toe tapping. He's not has a big of a stride anymore. He's kind of shortened it a little bit. We'll see if that produces better results. I mean, we came into the season thinking Henry Owens kind of maybe reinvented himself with his different windup. Maybe that was going to be the key to him and everything, but we'll see. I guess, at this point of some of these guys' careers, like a Henry Owens or a Bryce Brentz, you're just about ready to try anything to see if he can get back up there.
Makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, I mean, Brent's, what is he? Let's see, he's got hits in his last 6 games, a couple of dingers in that time. Yeah, he's randomly getting hot. Bringing his average above the Mendoza line, so let's keep this in perspective. I think the average is now up to 208 on the year, but hitting 324 in his last 10. But anyway, I guess kind of the first thing we wanted to talk with you about, Brendan, is the whole saga, I guess, of the Pawtucket Red Sox. I guess starts with the sale, but now it has come to be this whole saga with them getting a new stadium. For those who haven't been to Pawtucket, McCoy Stadium, it's not a bad park. Having been to, for example, Hagerstown in the South Atlantic League near me down here in D.C., it's a fine park. It's, fine size for AAA, not a bad place to watch a game by any stretch. Has some idiosyncrasies like the high stands behind home plate that make viewing angles kind of rough, but it's also certainly not state of the art. So I guess before even the sale of the team, when was the first that you remember hearing any discussions about the Paw Sox even getting a new stadium? Was it just when James Skeffington and that group bought the team that this first came into being?
Yeah, this is, I would say, we go back to February 2015 when Jim Skeffington, Larry Lucchino, and a group of businessmen, some ties with the Red Sox, the Fenway Sports Group, some prominent Rhode Island businessmen as well. They purchased the team, and then all of a sudden, that same day, they announced, okay, we're leaving McCoy Stadium. We're going to be here until the 2017 season, and our plan is to build a downtown Providence ballpark. And that vision, it sort of came to life. I remember taking a site tour on the land that they were going to try to build a ballpark, and Jim Skeffington, the late Jim Skeffington, was hailing it as a ballpark where you could have the potential of seeing home runs disappear into a river. They're trying to build it as maybe the AT&T Park of the minor leagues, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that vision kind of got put on hold when Jim Skeffington died in May of 2015. He barely owned the team or had control of the team for 3 months when he passed away. And, they still had a vision to maybe try to push this through. I remember that summer, 2015, they were the Paw Sox were conducting listening tours throughout the state. The team itself organized a trip down to Durham to try to showcase that, as that's a ballpark in an area where, that could help rebuild or revitalize the community. And that's what the Paw Sox have kind of been touting. It's not just about the ballpark. It's about the experience, the ambiance, the area outside of it. And in September of 2015, those plans got completely put on hold when Governor Gina Raimondo stepped in and said, that land that Jim Skeffington had his eye on, that's not going to be suitable for a ballpark. We have other ideas for it. And here we are, 2017. A couple weeks ago, we had a ballpark proposal that came out, big day in Pawtucket at Slater Mill, where they talked about private-public partnerships and how much it would cost. And just this, a week later, so just last week, before the Memorial Day weekend, the state legislator came out and said there's not enough time to vet it by the time the General Assembly wraps up for the summer. And it's been an interesting couple of years, to say the least, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a saga with twists and turns. And I mean, part of me is seeing this. I mean, I can still remember the first proposal for the downtown park in Providence looked beautiful. It looked like it was going to be great. It looked like it wouldn't have been that big of a deal to build it. You weren't really, if I remember correctly, you weren't displacing a whole lot, correct? It wasn't like this was, knocking down too many buildings or anything like that. But was it just
no.
Oh, go ahead.
This was on completely vacant land.
Mm-hmm.
There was you might have to knock down a building or two, but the crux of where the building was going to be, the stadium itself was going to be built. It was vacant land, and they hailed it as it was going to be the perfect dimensions to have a football game in there, a college football game, maybe hockey. They were really championing it as a multi-purpose facility with year-round usage.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, as someone who made the trek down to Brown Stadium for football games for the 4 years I was a student and the 4 years I was working for the department, I was not upset about the fact that those games might have been held in downtown Providence as opposed to up on College Hill. Might have even been able to mix in more than one night game a year with that proposal as well.
Yes.
But did that basically... Was it just a matter of, I mean, my kind of understanding, was it a public funding issue that basically shut that idea down? You mentioned Governor, I don't know how to pronounce her, Raimondo. Yeah. Was it just, you said when she stepped in, was it the funding or was it the other usage?
I think it was the other usage. I think they maybe had other ideas of what they wanted to do with that land. And somewhat, I believe Brown University still had control of that land, and that's why we talked about, Brown University was going to maybe play 2 or 3 home games there during the fall, whatever, and maybe even lacrosse, whatever. I mean, it sounded like, Brown might get pretty good usage out of that area as well. But I think the governor stepped in and said, no, we're not going to put a baseball stadium here. We have other ideas, and that's that. And in the Paw Sox, I think in 2015, they took a huge PR flag in terms of, coming on the new group coming on board and saying they wanted to move to Providence right away because they're thinking of McCoy Stadium, Ben Mondor, the ties, the ambiance, the history, all that stuff had the potential of being flushed down the toilet, but for lack of a better term. And they really, last year, the Paw Sox, to their credit, they really did a commendable job in trying to win back the fan base. It didn't really reflect in the actual attendance figures, but staying to their mission, introducing new people. Dan Ray as a general manager, Dr. Charles Steinberg, who's worked up at Fenway for a lot of years. They added Major League Baseball and other Baltimore Orioles, LA Dodgers. He came down as the team president. Larry Lucchino took more of an active role as the chairman of the team, and Mike Tamburo, who was there under the birth of the franchise under Ben Mondor, he's still in the fold as the vice chairman. They really tried to get all their ducks in a row. They did another study of the ballpark this past winter that came out and said it would cost maybe about $60-something million to build, or I guess renovate McCoy Stadium, and it would be $70 million or so, just maybe a $10 million difference to build a new ballpark, so to speak. So they kind of try to portray it as we would like a new ballpark, so to speak. And here we are. They came out with a proposal. Right now, if I'm not a mathematician, so to say, but it looks pretty good in theory. The Paw Sox did their homework. The goal is obviously to try and keep them in Pawtucket, because I can't see them, if they go anywhere else in the state, I don't know where they would go, given the Providence situation from a couple of years ago. But it's really kind of up in the air right now, for lack of a better term, Chris.
Yeah, it seems so. The most recent development was that they had a proposal with the city of Pawtucket and the Paw Sox to basically, I think it was the state was going to pay, I think, around $26 million. The city was going to pay like in the teens,
$15 million.
$15 million, and the rest was going to be private, right? And then it went to they were going to propose it, but then the General Assembly, which is Rhode Island's legislature, basically said they don't have time to review this before the end of the session. Is that correct? So where do we stand?
That's pretty much spot on.
Is it? I mean, is it just a matter of we're going to have to sit and wait another year before we know what's happening, or
I mean, it's interesting, because I think they're still trying to make a push to maybe sit down with the governor, maybe get these legislators to realize there's still time to kind of vet it. I mean, typically, talking to people who are up at the General Assembly, business doesn't usually get wrapped up until, say, June 30th. Now, we're taping this on Memorial Day. In theory, there's still a month to go. I don't think that. I think the idea that the Paw Sox or the city of Pawtucket is kind of ramming this down everyone's throat is kind of maybe a little unfair. There's still an opportunity to kind of digest it and everything, and I don't know. It just, there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. Will there be patience on the part of the management team for the Paw Sox to say, okay, if they promise that we get to meet in the fall, which is very rare for the Rhode Island General Assembly, once they're done in June, they don't usually reconvene until January again. They don't come back for the fall very often. But as out the deals they make, they say, okay, take the summer to kind of get all your ducks in a row, and we'll see you in September. Will that sit well with Larry Lucchino and the other owners and the front office staff? That remains to be seen.
I was going to say, do you think there's any chance that, say, a Worcester swoops in here? And I'm trying to think of where I might have seen it. I think Bill at the Projo might have been the one that wrote about this, but I can't quite remember.
Bill Ballou, I think.
Yeah,
Bill Ballou probably.
Yeah, I mean,
he goes.
Do you think
he works out of the Worcester Telegram, and
right.
He's been down a couple times. Randomly, I see Bill. I said, Bill, are you here to write another story about the Paw Sox potentially getting scooped up by Worcester? And he always mentions, I guess, postcards. Postcards is always the word on Bill's lips, especially how many postcards has Worcester sent to the Paw Sox front office saying why we would love to have the AAA team of the Boston Red Sox in our backyard. And I've said to Bill a couple of times, I said, Bill, they couldn't even support a Can-Am League team. And it's, how are they going to support a AAA team where it's not even the existing market for AAA baseball?
Yeah, city size, it's not like it's, I guess Providence is obviously bigger, or is it even bigger than Worcester? I don't know. But it remains to be seen. I guess we're going to have to wait and see with it, but we'll be keeping an eye on the Times, and you guys have been doing a good job covering that, and the Projo too, and see what happens. But I think we can agree at this point, it doesn't look like the team's in any imminent danger of moving or anything like that. It seems like it's pretty good, at least that they'll be staying at Pawtucket.
They have a lease until through the 2020 season. It's not like if, say, something happens, it's not like it's not going to be like the Baltimore Colts,
right?
Leaving in the middle and down the Mayflower or something. We're not going to be watching Mayflower trucks pull out of one Bedmont or way anytime soon.
Beautiful. Well, let's get back to the action on the field a little bit. We talked a little bit about Bryce Brent's. One guy that I was kind of wondering about, and what this is almost more we see the numbers, and we've talked about him as kind of being stuck in purgatory in AAA because of his contract, but Rusney Castillo's not having a bad season. Has there been any talk about, is he stuck there until his contract's up? What's the deal? Has there been any talk about what his fate might be? He's hitting 278, 306, 483, 7 home runs this year. He's got 6 steals without being caught. It's not bad numbers, but of course the Red Sox are, barring injury, set in the outfield, and I guess it would have to be a trade. But what's the talk about what's happening with in his future?
They're very the Kevin Bowles, the manager of the team, very pleased with the progress he's made, especially Rusney got off to a bit of a slow start. I think he's tied for the team lead with home runs right now, which, he's been basically serving as a leadoff hitter for this team. I just think that he is stuck in that kind of purgatory mode, mainly because of his contract situation. The Red Sox have made no bones about it. They want to stay underneath that competitive luxury tax. They want to have some wiggle room in terms of potentially making a room or making some kind of move at the deadline. And Rusney, I just feel like for all the numbers he could win International League MVP, and I still don't think it would be good enough to get him up to the Red Sox just because of his contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. It's just I didn't know if there's been any heat in the stands or anything. If anyone's mentioned anything, it's kind of a rough situation for the guy with what's going on there. Another guy that I've been curious about as far as being able to see day to day and what the coaching staff's been saying about him, but you mentioned Henry Owens and the mechanical changes he's made. It seems like the last few outings he's had starts that I would say are Henry Owens starts, where he strikes out a bunch of guys, he walks a few guys, he gives up some hard hits, and the line looks okay. Is there any progress there? Are they talking about him, in a way that they're happy with where it's going? I mean, this 58 strikeouts in 48 innings, great. 35 walks in 48 innings, very bad.
Not good. Not good.
Not good.
Not good.
What do they see there?
I mean, I just feel like everything you ask Kevin Bowles every time, what do you expect from Henry Owens? Just consistency. That's all they're looking for at the end of the day. It's pretty simple. I mean, I don't know if it's too much nibbling on the mound for Henry Owens. It's, if there's like an aggression gene in him that he needs to all of a sudden he needs to kind of summon or whatever, because this is like the hardest velocity-wise I've seen Henry Owens throw in his, I believe, we're going back to 2014. So this is his fourth year in Pawtucket. I mean, he's touched 92, 93. I mean, I've never seen those numbers in his last couple of years. Usually he's maybe 91 at the most.
Right.
So the off-season, weight training program that he did, it's clearly worked in that regard. But, it's kind of like the same old bugaboo with him about, nibbling here, nibbling there, falling behind 2-1, 3-2. And it's, I think he walked the first or second batter in the game yesterday against Durham on a Sunday, and then he didn't walk another guy until the sixth inning, I believe. So it's, within every start with Harry Owens, you can see the good and you can see the frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. We've seen Sam Travis come up. We were actually just talking about Dustin Pedroia getting sent back to Boston for an MRI. Any word on who they might be looking at as kind of the next guy up? If Kevin Bowles has talked about that, or at least in terms of the lineup, guys that they're happy with, guys that they think might be able to contribute, or is it just kind of there was Sam Travis and I guess Selski's on the 40-man, and otherwise it's guys that are kind of stuck in purgatory like Rusney?
Well, a guy that I've asked Kevin Bowles about the last couple times, and Ryan Court pretty quietly has come along here, been steady. He's actually become a middle of the order option for this team. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the year? Mm-hmm. He's shown some power. He has that versatility that they like amongst their infielders. I don't think he's spectacular at any one position, but maybe kind of like he's kind of like a poor man's Marco Hernandez, if maybe the best way I can compare it. Maybe not as proficient with the bat, but someone who you could plug in, say at a third base, a shortstop, or a second base. And obviously, Ryan Court's on the 40-man roster right now. They talked today, after today's game, Monday, about maybe Pablo Sandoval continuing his rehab down in Norfolk, but that's where the Paw Sox go next. I wouldn't be surprised if something, Dustin Pedroia, the MRI tomorrow, it doesn't come back, positive news, he ends up on the disabled list. They might tell Pablo, I think, we kind of need you now. Mm-hmm. And that would allow, say, maybe a Devin Marrero or a Josh Rutledge to maybe take a platoon role at second base, because right now there's not a second baseman, a true second baseman on the 40-man roster who's being stashed in Pawtucket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just saying the same thing. I guess I kind of completely missed the Sandoval thing. I mean, has he looked recently to you like a guy that would be at least able to kind of do the job if he came up? Or obviously they'd like to have him have a little more time, but in an emergency situation, do you think he's ready?
I think he's today, Monday, he played his third 9-inning game. I mean, I don't know how much more that they would want. I mean, we kind of talked about last week about the whole David Price saga. Should he have gotten a third rehab start? And I still will contend that he did need a third rehab start, even though today was pretty solid against the White Sox. But I think if Pablo checks out, fine. And the news on Dustin Pedroia is not very positive or encouraging. I wouldn't be surprised that Pablo's on his way to the Windy City. He's activated, and we go with a Josh Rutledge Marrero platoon at second base.
Oh joy! Be still my heart. The joys of Plan C and Plan D.
It warms the heart, that potential, but. Who thought that Dev Marrero would be up in the big leagues for this extended period of time, to be honest with you?
Good point. I mean, and I guess seeing him every day, Scott Boras, I think pretty soon before he got called up, had come out with, I thought, this asinine comment that Devin Marrero is the type of player, and I think it's just basically him advocating for his client, but Devin Marrero is the type of player that needs to be up in the major leagues or something like that. I mean, did you see anything out of Marrero on a day-to-day that evinced any frustration with being in Pawtucket? I mean, it's a thing that we see happen with guys who think they should be up. And does it strike you from anything you've seen there that he's the type of guy that would be better just being up in the majors, even if it's maybe in a bench role?
I never saw him grumpy or unsatisfied in that respect. I think he, every time you would talk to him about, hey, you're hitting 200, what are you doing to work on? He always seemed very accountable in that regard. It's not like, I'm down here in AAA. I'm on the 40 man. I should be up in the big leagues. He never had that kind of attitude about him per se. And I just, I always, I've talked with other people at McCoy about, he's a guy that should maybe kind of learn the short game, try to be more of a slap hitter and try to get on base that way, because the way his swing, he looks like he's trying to hit a home run every time. And that's not him. Obviously we've seen enough of a sample size now that, he should maybe tinker with his approach that maybe plays to his strengths, which is maybe a little more foot speed than the average guy. So I don't know, but it's been almost a month now since we've seen Dev Marrero in Pawtucket, and it kind of speaks to maybe the situation up in Boston in terms of the injuries. Losing Marco Hernandez for the season and not having Josh Rutledge and for a period of time, and obviously Pablo Sandoval, but. I think Dev Marrero will have a place on this team, at least for the foreseeable future, for the Red Sox.
Interesting. The one last thing I wanted to ask you about, Brendan, is there have been a lot of guys in that Pawtucket bullpen who struck us, even entering the season, as options at the major league level. And it's been kind of interesting to me to see who's been going up and coming back down. Obviously, Ben Taylor made the opening day roster, and he really hasn't spent much time at Pawtucket, even though he's been optioned a couple times. Brendan Workman has kind of reemerged as an up-and-down guy at the very least. He's back down at Pawtucket right now, but he's been up a couple of times, even if he hasn't pitched much in the majors. And Noe Ramirez has been in that Noe Ramirez, 26th guy in the doubleheader, up for a couple of days because we need an arm type spot. But it's been interesting to me to see that Kyle Martin hasn't really gotten a shot yet. Chandler Shepard's not on the 40-man, but he struck me as a guy who might be able to come up. And the Paw Sox have gotten a couple of more options in the bullpen recently, and the promotions of Jamie Callahan and what looks like it might be the for good promotion finally to Pawtucket of Austin Maddox, even though he'd been up a couple other times. And then Edgar Olmos was a guy who seemed interesting to us heading into spring training at least, and I think our reports on him haven't been quite as good. But in any of those guys, is anybody kind of emerging from that pack other than what we've seen and who's been called up? Has Kevin Bowles or any of the coaching staff, or from what you've seen and you're with your own eyes, who else can we expect to come up? Or do we think we've seen the guys who are the options right now, and Martin and Shepard and Callahan and Maddox maybe have a little bit more of a step to make before they join that up and down crew?
Well, I've been very impressed with J.B. Callahan since he's come up. And I asked Kevin Bowles one day, how much is that stuff really playing right now? And when you're at the lower levels of the minor leagues, your mid-90s fastball, that could be your best weapon. As you get up to the AAA level and you're facing hitters who have big league service time. That high fastball, that might be an issue. So right now, I think he's more working on location more than anything. I talked to Kevin Bowles about Kyle Martin, asked him about, what's kind of happening with him, because obviously this is a guy that was put on the 40-man roster last year. So you were thinking maybe he was going to go the bit of the Pat Light route in terms of, okay, he's on the 40-man. If he gets off to a good start, will he get an opportunity to go up there? And we really haven't seen, a good solid stretch of outings from Kyle Martin to make you think, okay, something goes haywire up in the Boston bullpen. Will he be the guy that get called up? Instead, we're still going through the Noe Ramirez, and Brandon Workman has worked himself back in the equation. He's still yet Brandon Workman to pitch on back-to-back days, so I'm sure they're still taking precautions with him coming off the. It's almost 2 years now with the Tommy John surgery, but still, it feels like it's truly his first year back. I know he pitched in a couple games last year. He never made quite back to Pawtucket after, getting back on the mound. But, Maddox, I saw him on Friday night. He pitched 3 scoreless innings, looked very impressive. It just, it's the bullpen, it just seems is the most interesting group right now amongst the positions for the White Sox, starting pitching, bullpen, infield, outfield. It bears watching because you have guys who have the opportunity to go up and down on a periodic basis, and now they're being pushed from guys who aren't on the 40-man roster, like you mentioned, like a Chandler Shepard, a Maddox, a Callahan. So it'll be interesting to see how June, July plays out, and say if one of them gets in a position where they get called up, say like a Robbie Scott a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still can't get over after what he was to the Paw Sox for a couple of years that he's the guy that wound up becoming the late inning lefty for the Major League Club. I would have never, ever predicted that. So who knows? Maybe it's someone we're not even looking at right now. But all right, I think we've taken up plenty of your time. We appreciate you coming on the podcast, Brendan. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Don't get to see you as often anymore because I'm not in Rhode Island. I don't get to attend the Words Unlimited meetings to do that kind of stuff. But it's always a pleasure, and hopefully I'll see you again before too long.
Yeah, look forward to it, Chris. Hopefully you come out to McCoy while you can still call that at McCoy Stadium the home for the Pawtucket Red Sox.
Good point. I look forward to going back and not having any idea what the pitcher's throwing based on movement and only being able to guess based on velocity because of the viewing angle. But I say that fondly. I say that fondly. It's a good park. Everybody go check it out.
As you know, as you sit in those scouting seats, and I ask the scouts all the time, how do you people evaluate when you're looking down?
Yeah, it's not easy for me, and I'm not even good at it to begin with. So, anyways, all right. Well, Brendan, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks a bunch, Chris.
All right, cool. Well, thanks to Brendan McGair of the Pawtucket Times for coming on the show. I mentioned Words Unlimited just to explain that. That's a group of Rhode Island sports media professionals. So you get like the newspaper writers and the athletic department the athletic department media relations people, which is what I was at the time. I wasn't there as part of Sox Prospects. They all get together like monthly or so and plan this big banquet at the end of the year where they honor a bunch of like Rhode Island high school and professional and luminary type people, writing type people. It's kind of a trip to be part of because Rhode Island's just so tiny. It's like one of the only states you could have something like that realistically. But you basically it's a Rhode Island thing. So basically you get together and eat Dell's lemonade and drink coffee milk is really what happens. So
most other states, they just have it for each city will do their own.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what it is.
You have like Well,
Rhode Island's basically a city state. So
yeah.
Ooh. All right. Well, the one
We're
thing
not trying to alienate listeners from Rhode Island here. Come on.
Oh, what? It's a city state. That's what you. It's. I say that endearingly.
Oh, is that what it's called?
I mean, it kind of is. It's a city state where you basically have
states. I'm thinking like history because I'm a history guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am too, but I'm saying it's like you've got Pawtucket. It's like basically, I mean, the state is called State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. Like it's basically Providence and the outlying towns, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm insulting anybody by saying that. If I am,
fair enough.
If I am, lighten up. All right, the other thing that we just wanted to talk about really quickly, we were thinking about when we first were planning this episode, talking about the new rankings that will be coming out on June the 1st. It's the night of May 29th as we record this. To be frank, we don't know what the rankings are going to be yet because we're having trouble settling on a list. But then I kind of realized, well, that's probably a good discussion. We thought about tabling it for the next one, but we might be focused more on draft at that point. So I just wanted to at least have this talk with Ian on the show today. And basically, what I want to focus on, really, Ian, is one of the discussions we're having is that in the system right now, there's a very clear top three. I don't think I'm surprising anyone when I say that the top three, when we release the new rankings on June the 1st, is going to be Rafael Devers at number 1, Jake Groom at number 2, Sam Travis number 3.
I would even go a little farther and say that there's Rafael Devers, then there's a gap,
yes.
Then there's Jay Groom, then there's a very big gap, and then there's Sam Travis.
Do you
and
think?
Then there's a very... Not a very... There's a pretty big gap.
I think the gap is closing because of the fact that Groom hasn't pitched.
Yeah.
And Travis has hit, and now he's back. He's up in the majors. Yeah. I thought for half a second about Travis versus Groom, and I'm like, no, it's clearly still Groom.
No, don't do that.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. I thought for half a second.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's just then it's chaos. I would say then there's a enormous plateau after Sam Travis with
yes.
the system right now, and I think you and I were on the same wavelength. We were talking earlier, and the way I described it is that I look at the options, and I don't want to sound well. I'm not saying anything I haven't said already. I look at who the options are to put at number 4 in the system, and none of them look right.
Well, that's what I told you before, that I would like to leave number 4 blank, and then let's just go to number 5.
I would even say leave 2 or 3 spots blank, and it's the same thing we've said in the past, where like you look at the system, and everyone after a certain point looks like they're about 4 spots too high. And
there's just no depth.
I think that's what we have right now. Honestly, if we were choosing these guys for even like 6th or 7th in the system, I'd feel a lot better about it. And it's not as bad. Again, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal because of the fact that the Major League roster is very young. The U25 list still includes Xander Bogaerts. It still includes Mookie Betts. It still includes Jackie Bradley's too old now, but
Andrew Benintendi.
It still includes Andrew Benintendi. It still includes Eduardo Rodriguez. It still includes Christian Vasquez and Blake Swihart, and to whatever degree,
Marco Hernandez,
Henry Owens. We should mention Marco Hernandez is going to graduate in the next rankings, as are Robbie Scott and Devin Marrero.
Yep.
So that's why when we say the 4th spot, I think we should probably mention that Marco Hernandez is not a consideration anymore. Otherwise, he would have been a very easy number 4 for me, frankly.
Even with the injury,
it would have been no question number 4 for Marco Hernandez. Let's start here, Ian. The options. I would say that there are realistically 5 options for number 4. I don't think I would put Brian Johnson in the conversation.
No.
I don't think that I would put Nick Longy in Portland in the conversation. I don't think I would put Brian Mata, who we were talking about earlier in the conversation, and I don't think we would put either of the college pitchers from last year's draft in Sean Anderson and Mike Shawaryn in the conversation yet.
Nope.
I think anyone from that group could be by July 1st. But
maybe.
No, I mean, okay.
I think it'll be tough to break.
If Brian Mata shoves in Greenville as a 17-year-old, you're telling me you're not... I'd put him at number 4 easily.
I mean, I'd probably have to see him, but that's a special case. I mean,
but but I'm saying there's routes, right? Nick Longy starts hitting for power. Brian Johnson.
You could talk me into
Brian Johnson holds down a major league job and looks like he might be a number 5 again.
Well, then he graduates, so it's fine.
Would he? Oh, we'll look at that. Maybe not. Mike Shawaryn gets promoted to Salem and does in Salem what he's doing in Greenville right now. And Sean Anderson, if he starts shoving in Salem, maybe he's the biggest stretch, but he starts doing what Shawaryn's doing in Greenville and Salem. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hypotheticals. I think focusing on the 5 there are, because there's already enough to talk about with those guys.
Sorry if you just heard me freak out. The cat jumped directly from the floor onto my computer, and I thought she was going to turn the podcast off.
That would have been awesome.
It would have been.
Wouldn't be the first time you haven't recorded a podcast.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Anyway, okay. So the options for number 4, in no particular order, or actually we'll go alphabetical order. The contenders are shortstop C.J. Chatham, who has played One game this year.
Oh, 3 at-bats of the game.
3 at-bats in the game before leaving. He started the year late with a hamstring injury. He was finally activated, played in one game on May the 19th, and came out of that game and went back on the DL.
With a hamstring injury.
Michael Chavis, who is almost certainly going to be the Sox Prospects Player of the Month for May.
Yeah, he's still hitting, huh?
This season, he is hitting .358, .434, .702 with 12 home runs. Yes, that's a .702 slugging.
And
has committed errors in 6 of the 14 games he's played in the field.
Eek.
He has not played many games in the field because of elbow inflammation, and when he has, I think he's got 7 or 8 errors at this point.
Yeah,
already.
that's a problem.
Last time I checked, his fielding percentage was below 800.
No bueno.
No bueno. Bobby Dahlbeck, third baseman who started the year in Greenville. He's presently on the DL with hand and wrist soreness, and who has a line of .264, .358, .358, and has struck out 44 times in 123 plate appearances. He's striking out in 35, actually close, just under 36% of his at-bats, so more than a third of his at-bats he's striking out. Who else is next alphabetically after the initial letters of the alphabet? Okay, so Travis Lakins and Josh Ockamy are the remaining 2. Travis Lakins right-handed pitcher, began the year in Salem. In 7 starts, he had a .261 ERA, 5-0 record, 1.18 WHIP, 43 strikeouts to 13 walks in 38 innings. Started off very well. Since being promoted to Portland, he actually had a good start today, so I have to bring up his new stats. But Lakins. But he's made 3 starts in Portland for the Sea Dogs, and in those starts he has numbers of, please load, he has a .982 ERA, has given up 13 hits and 7 walks, struck out 8. But that said, his best start was his start today on the 29th, when he went 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, 2 earned on 1 hit and 4 walks, struck out 6, 93 pitches, 54 walks.
54 strikes.
54 strikes, sorry, thank you. 93 pitches.
54 walks.
He did not have 54 walks today. And the final contender for the number 4 spot in the system is first baseman Josh Ockamy. He is in Salem at age 21. He's hitting .310, .419, .494 with 6 home runs. He struck out 48 times in 198 plate appearances, which is a 24% rate, so it's not bad. There's really no, quote, knock on him so much, Ian, I would say, so much as there's just, it's a first base only profile. It's not a great glove at first
defender.
base.
That's probably, I mean, it's
just,
the knocks on him.
The tougher
below
road
average
to
athlete,
yes,
and not a great defender, but
so
first base profile.
I think you've got basically guys who have had great starts to the year. You've had guys who have not had great starts to the year. And it's trying to order those 5 guys that I think has us all in something of a tizzy. It's been very difficult trying to rank from 4 to 8. We all have those guys ranked in some order from 4 to 8. Let me throw to you. I have been talking a lot. Everyone's telling me to shut up. What's your take on the situation, and then who do you have it for?
My take on the situation is that it's kind of a mess. It's hard because the easy answer, I think, would be to put one of the guys who's performed at the plate in Chavis or Ockamy there. But then when you take a step back, you look, and as you said with Chavis, the defense, there's big questions there. And he's still not playing the field consistently, and he's going to cool down. He's not this good of a hitter. And then similarly with Ockamy, it's the first base only profile, below average athlete. It's just a tough, we've seen first basemen hit, and then like guys like Lars Anderson, then they get up to the high minors and they kind of stall out. And similarly with Ockamy last year, he had a great first half, second half, not great. Travis Lakins, he was good in high A, but then he's got up to Portland. I saw him last week, and I'm not convinced he's a starter. He's very small. He's probably like 6 foot, 6'1", and doesn't really have any playing on his fastball.
I'm 6'3", he's not 6'1". After seeing him in spring training, he's 6 foot tops.
Yeah, I mean, he's listed as 6'1", so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They added an inch.
Yeah, so he's an undersized pitcher, and I think the stuff will play out of the bullpen, no doubt, but I'm just not convinced he's a starter. And, would I rank someone who I'm not convinced is a starter in the top at number 4? Not sure about that. And then you get to Chatham and Dahlbeck, and they're both injured right now. And Chatham's played one game, and Dahlbeck, has struck out, and as you said, a ton of his at-bats. And kind of where that led me was to not change anything. And I have the list exactly how it is right now. I think Dahlbeck, Chatham, Lakins, Akami, Chavis. That's the order I have it in. And my thinking with that is that I want to see more. I want to see what things look like by midseason, after the All-Star break. Where are we at? And I just think it's only, guys like Dahlbeck, he's at 100 at-bats. He struck out a lot. I knew he was going to strike out. It's just, if his strikeout rate was like 28, 29, 30%, I'd be fine. That'd be not a problem. But 35%, that's an issue, especially against, low A pitching.
I don't know. Let me just jump in. I wouldn't say not a problem. I would say something to watch, but we can deal with it.
With the way baseball is going, though, you can live with like a 20 and under a 30% strikeout rate.
Got it. Please continue.
That's just the way it's going. Mm-hmm. People don't care about strikeouts as much anymore. And I don't want to be reactionary and just say, oh, he's off to a bad start and change something, because I do think Dahlbeck still has upside. And similarly with Chatham, I do think he, has some upside at shortstop too. And just because they're hurt, I don't want to ding them too much. But at the same time, it's tough with, when you've got guys behind them performing. Yeah. And so for this month, I kind of just want to leave it as is, but I'm open to changing things, definitely. And I think there's the gap between 4 and 9 is very, very, or 4 and 8, I guess now, would be very, very small.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I should mention is Bobby Dahlbeck. The one thing that I know for me is we have, even now, his projection as a 4.5 on our, I guess it's 2 to 8 scale rather than the 20/80 scale. It would be a 45 on the 20/80 scale. To me, he has, at this point, fallen back to a 4 projection.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the start to the year.
I would agree.
It's interesting with Dahlbeck because I hear your point about the sample size this year, but we're getting to the point where this year he's got 123 plate appearances. He had 143 with Lowell last year. So we're coming up on equaling the sample size that he had in Lowell, when last year he hit 386, 427, 674, just crushed the ball in Lowell. It's kind of crazy to look at the two lines next to each other because, he had 13 doubles and 7 home runs and actually had a couple of triples in the 34 games. And this year in 29 games, he has 4 doubles and 2 home runs. And that's
I wonder, though, how long has this hand wrist soreness been a problem?
That's what I was going to say. If
it's been a problem like the entire year, then that could be, it's hard to swing a bat when your hand and wrist are injured.
That's true. And, the thing is, I think I asked you this before, but in spring training, to me, I was expecting more when I saw him.
Well, I think we talked about it at the time. He was striking out a ton in spring training.
Yeah.
You're there for...
go ahead.
We saw him for what? I think I saw him 3 or 4 games.
Something like that.
He did hit a home run, but he was just... Yeah, he was chasing sliders. Excuse me. And he was swinging at pitches that he wasn't swinging at last year in Lowell. And he was swinging through fastballs in the zone, which is another thing he just wasn't doing last year. So there were kind of some red flags going back then, but at the same time, the hand and wrist injury was kind of if it was like a lower body thing, I would be using that as an excuse. But knowing how much of a problem, if your wrist is sore and you play through it, ergo, as we saw with Michael Chavis last year. Was his wrist last year?
No, he broke his thumb.
Or thumb, yeah, sorry. But hand/wrist, that can derail in a season. So
sure. And to me, it's almost kind of like, if we later find out that there's a reason that he's striking out so much, there's a reason he's not really making contact. His average on balls in play is kind of crazy to me. Is still 433. He's just not putting the ball in play. When he's hitting the ball, he's hitting it hard. The line drive percentage is 30%. So of his batted balls, 30% of them are line drives. If we find out later that the injury was what caused the strikeouts, say, to oversimplify, I don't think we've screwed up by dropping him in the rankings, dropping him in the rankings accordingly. But then, oh wait, there's a reason, bump him back up, because that's new information, right? I'm not one to kind of like hedge the bet necessarily. To me, I have to go with what I have right now, and it's hand and wrist soreness. If they had come back with like broken thumb, oh, it turns out he did this during spring training. Okay, cool, we'll keep him where he is. But to me, and I say keep him where he is because he was already kind of a half step above the other guys. To me, he's fallen back into that pack, and I can't. I don't know. Maybe I can decide to keep him number 4. I'm still just very up in the air because personally, what I did, I'll just go into this. I have Lakins at number 4 right now, and the reason I have that, it's almost by default because he's closest to the majors, frankly. Even if he does wind up becoming a reliever. I think with the stuff, even if it's not necessarily, I mean, the plane on the fastball is a problem in terms of the size. I don't know. I mean, has there been a 6 foot tall? Has there been a short closer?
Yeah, like Tyler Thornburg's like 6 foot.
Okay,
5'11".
but then he's also throwing high 90s.
Yeah, I mean, but Lakins is like he was up to 96. I want to say you're gonna hear me flipping through papers. But I think he could be like 94, 95, 96.
Yeah, I mean, if he's got that out of the bullpen with 2 good secondaries that are at least average.
He's got like a cutter and a curveball. Or it's like a cutter slider. It might be 2 pitches. It could be 1 and then a curveball. And he throws a changeup also, actually.
So, I mean, if he can do... I mean, there's a chance there's a late-inning bullpen arm there. It's not just one of
I would think so.
The group of relievers we were talking about with Brendan where they all basically protect to the middle innings. It's a different kind of reliever.
Yes.
Even then, I think in the system, that might be a number 4 prospect, frankly. I mean, it's... And I don't mean that. I mean, it's in a matter
I think
of fact.
the reason he'd be number 4, the case you make for him at number 4 is, though, that he has a chance to be a back-end starter.
Right.
That's the case. It's not that his floor is a reliever. It's that he has a chance to be a starter.
That's fair, but I mean, even still, like I said, if you have a guy in the system, if Steven Nagosic, right, projected as a future closer, right, he's being used as a reliever right now in Greenville, he's being used as their closer. If he projected to be Jonathan Papelbon, I'd think about him at 4.
I just don't like putting relievers in like the top 10.
But
I mean, I agree. I see what you're saying.
What's
but
the starter here? That you know what I mean? I mean, yes, maybe Anderson and Schwarn and Mata are moving their way. Maybe Darwin's and Hernandez, although I think he's probably a reliever long term. Those guys will move their way up, and if they still project as potential starters down the road, I think, like I said, I think that July ranking, if we re-rank in mid-July after the signing deadline for the draft, maybe they'll be in that group. Although maybe this is going to be part of the conversation next week of where the draftees go and where the J2 guys are going to go, the July 2 international signings, because it seems like the Red Sox are going to make a big splash there. Maybe your number 4 prospect come August 1 is going to be Daniel Flores. Who knows? But
that's crazy.
It's insane.
It's realistic.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's not out of the question, though.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's a coin flip for me because I can talk myself into and out of most of these guys. You know, with Chatham, I don't want to knock him because he's been hurt. I also don't want to like have him just be the number 4 guy by default because he hasn't played for long enough for us to have anything to not like about him yet.
And with him too, it's not like he wasn't that great last year. I mean, he kind of rounded into form as the season progressed because speaking of hand injuries, he was coming back from a hand injury. But even him, like, it's just he doesn't have that much upside. Like, I don't, he's a short. He's gonna stick. He'd probably stick at shortstop. Even though he's like 6'4", but I just don't think the bat has that much upside. And I've become more wary of glove first shortstops because of what happened with Devin Marrero, where he was someone who we liked a lot because we were like, oh, he's a no surefire major league shortstop, and it's like at some point you do have to hit. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my concerns with Chatham is that I don't know how much juice there is in his bat.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a guy that, I mean, I think we said this in spring training. He looks the part. He looks like an athlete.
He looks like a baseball player.
He looks like a baseball player, but just on field, I just wasn't blown away. Even, there wasn't.
He just doesn't have a standout tool, really.
No, it's average across the board, or maybe slightly above average. And I just, again, is that your number 4 prospect in the system right now? I don't know. Do you prefer average across the board, or do you prefer Bobby Dahlbeck or even Chavis with, plus maybe double plus power? That raw, not an in game. yet, but even Akami, I guess you could maybe put in there. The 3 power guys, or do you like Lakins as the arm that is the closest to the majors? It's kind of funny. I think I may have talked myself into Chatham because he's the up-the-middle guy. But
and this is the thing. It's like if we were having this debate about like the number 10 prospect, it'd be like, great. Oh, the system's in great shape.
Yep.
It's just the idea that it's the number 4 is what's making it difficult, because it's like in a perfect world, I don't think any of these guys are your number 4 prospect, quote unquote.
No.
Granted, like these lists are all arbitrary and everything, but it's just, this is kind of like this what happens when you trade, at some point we're going to have to rank them, by the way, but when you trade like 15 to 20 prospects over a 2-year stretch and are banned from signing international guys. So
right, the international guy last year that they would have signed, though last year they were capped at $300K, so we should check on what Albert Guimaro and Simon Mazzotti did last year.
Point. But wasn't it was they were capped for the last 2 years though, right?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying
like
is Guimaro was the guy that could have probably gotten more on the open market, but took $300K to sign with the Red Sox for whatever reason. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's a muck. It's really a muck. To me, honestly, when I was ranking, and we're not going to talk about the second part of this, but to me it was the top 3 and then just a mush of guys from 4 to 21 that I all thought of about the same. And then after 21, I wanted to stop ranking guys. Especially after 30. I think I got to about 29 or 30 before I was just like, dude, I don't know.
20 to like 40 is legitimately relievers and outfielders. There's like, there's no one else.
Weird. It's a weird group.
It's a really weird system, and we're seeing though the issues with it right now, like the fact that Devin Barrera is in the major leagues right now, and with Dustin Pedroia potentially out, we're talking about like Ryan Court, which I thought was a good point by Brendan.
Yeah,
as someone who might be up in the big leagues because they need someone who has versatility, because they just don't have any depth in the high minors anymore. And like in past years, that Ryan Court role would be filled by Carlos Asuaje, who is up in the big leagues with the Padres right now. Or, Mauricio Dubon maybe gets a look in, but he's with the Brewers right now. And it's just like all the guys that in those depth positions that we've had that you kind of take for granted for years when under Cherington are gone now. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing, it's straining the major league team. And it's going to be like that for a few years until, they can get back in the July 2 game. And now that there's hard caps, I don't think they'll be losing. You can't get priced out of the July 2 market anymore. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be signing guys there internationally. And with the draft changes, they're only bringing in 1 or 2 guys a year. So it's a precarious position because, if they try to make 1 or 2 more trades, then I don't know where the help's coming from.
Although we should mention, I to be frank, when you have Holt, Sandoval, and Hernandez on the DL, I'm not going to fault you for not having infield depth.
Oh no!
I mean, you're on option D,
yeah. I mean, I
guess E if you count Rutledge was option D, and he played his way out of that role.
No, Hernandez would have been Hernandez would have been option A, I think, and Rutledge was B. You're on option C right now.
Well, no, I mean at third base. I'm saying the infield generally.
But Sandoval and Holt, I don't count because they would have been in the big leagues to start the year.
But I'm saying Plan A is to start Sandoval at third and Holt's a utility guy. Plan B is to start Holt at third.
I was just thinking about guys who just didn't start in the major leagues.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is like Plan C is your starter in the major leagues was Hernandez at third or second, and they're all hurt, and now you're stuck with. Rutledge and Guerrero are your middle infield options. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to fault the team for being on option E or F and not having a guy there. It's kind of like when the starters, when you're, why isn't the number 7 starter better, which we, again, won't get into. Because it's the number 7 starter. You're not going to sign a guy to come in and be the number 7 starter. And they need to do a better job developing pitching, but it's not because they didn't go get him in the offseason. But anyway, we should probably wrap up, Ian, while we've got this at a sane length. And
but so if you have any thoughts about the number 4 prospect, go check out the Sox Prospects message board, and I think there is a thread discussing it, or maybe not.
Not yet, but I was thinking of starting one, and maybe I will.
If there isn't, feel free to chime in. We're looking to get some new posters on there.
I think a poster started the discussion by asking us if we were crazy for having C.J. Chatham ranked ahead of Michael Chavis.
He's not wrong. Maybe
he's not wrong. He's not right. It's somewhere in between. It's just, if you go by what they've done in the past 6 weeks at the plate, Michael Chavis might be the number one prospect or number 2 prospect in the system, but that's not all that's there. There's defense to be played, and there's literally in the sense you need to be in the field, and figuratively in the sense that you need to play it well. Maybe we should just mention him real quick because we haven't talked about him. But if Chavis can't play the position at third, he winds up in left, and that's part of why I can't get fully on board until I see a little more consistency at third base out of him. I don't know.
I concur.
Yeah,
it's he's gonna, if he hits, which I mean we all agree he's going to come down to earth hitting wise, but if this power is legit and the average is it's like an average hit tool, then that can play. It's just it plays a lot better at third base than it would in left field.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, Ian, I think we will wrap it up. Finally, we mean it this time. Thank you to everyone for listening. Again, Patreon at Patreon/SoxProspects.com. Excuse me. Again, thank you to everyone for helping us hit our goal today as we record this podcast. Our initial goal. Next stop, 75, Ian?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, let's do it.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.
And make sure to check out forum.soxprospects.com and news.soxprospects.com.
Yeah, as well as, the website generally, but those two.
Yeah.
The forum, where we've got some great conversation happening there. If you've got a question for us, best way to send it in is podcast@soxprospects.com. Like we said, check out the news page where we've got all kinds of new stuff going up.
I'll have some stuff on Travis Lakins, Kevin McAvoy, maybe a Rafael Devers update.
Mm-hmm. You got anything you want to say to the people, Firefly?
Yeah.
You're just down there meowing? Nope, I put her up to the microphone. She gets microphone shy. All right, everybody, thank you for listening. For Ian, I'm Chris. We'll be back in your eardrums